When my wife flirted with her colleague in front of me and called me insecure, I decided to leave, and that same night, I set in motion a cold revenge she never imagined. My name is Ethan. I'm 35 years old. I married Scarlett when I was 26 and she was 24. I had just finished graduate school and was starting my first job. I worked as a financial analyst, a stable salary, a decent apartment, the type of man parents usually consider a good match. We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and ended up having the typical church wedding, surrounded by family and friends. The first few years of marriage weren't like a movie, but they were calm. Everything was solid. Over time, I understood that I fit exactly what she was looking for. Someone responsible, predictable, and who never asked too many questions. A reliable partner, always willing to prepare her meals when she had long shifts, always believing every explanation she gave. But for weeks, something about her had changed. Her behaviors, small at first, became impossible to ignore. She started leaving her phone face down on every table. She would come home and immediately jump into the shower when she used to crash on the sofa to rest. She spoke almost every day about a guy on her marketing team named Marcus, and she mentioned him so frequently that it became obvious. When your wife mentions the same man 15 times in 3 days, you notice. When she also starts working late, every Tuesday and every Thursday, arriving home between 8 and 9 at night, you definitely notice. Still, I kept silent, convincing myself that it must be work stress. Everything intensified at a barbecue organized by the head of her department. It was a huge house in the north area of Phoenix. Scarlett spent an hour getting ready, trying on different outfits and applying makeup as if she were going to a gala. I put on jeans and a polo shirt. We drove in separate cars because, according to her, she planned to stay a little longer to help with the cleanup. Upon reaching the backyard, not even a minute had passed when I knew exactly where everything was going. Scarlett barely crossed the threshold and immediately located Marcus. She mumbled that she was going to greet her team and practically walked straight toward him. This Marcus was exactly what one would imagine. Tanned, expensive haircut, gym physique, and a salesman's energy that needs everyone to know it. He had that air of a person who dominates conversations effortlessly, with a drink in one hand and gesticulating widely with the other while recounting how he had closed a big account. And my wife lit up the moment she saw him. In less than 5 seconds, she was already touching his arm. For the next 2 hours, I watched her repeat the same pattern over and over. Exaggerated laughter, brushes on his forearm, excessive leaning in to hear every word, even that fake giddy tone she used when we first met, and she was trying to impress me. I tried to join the conversation 4 times. 4. And with every attempt, she interrupted me or changed the subject as if I were a stranger intruding where I wasn't wanted. When I suggested we go check out the food table, she shot me an annoyed look, as if I were a child meddling in adult conversations. Then, another teammate arrived. Scarlett, as soon as she saw her, wasted no time introducing Marcus in detail. She spoke of his promotion, his new sales territory, his recent accomplishments. Then she pointed to me, saying, "And this is my husband." That was it. Not my name, not my profession, just my husband. As if I were just another piece of furniture in the garden. I walked away and got a drink, standing near the fence as I watched her continue to act like a single woman. Now she was touching his shoulder, and they were both looking at something on his phone while she laughed unrestrainedly. Slowly, the others in the group started to withdraw, surely sensing the obvious tension. After another hour enduring the scene, I decided to provoke a deliberate reaction. I approached and told her I was thinking of going home because I had to wake up early the next day. She acted as if I had said the most ridiculous thing in the world. "Why don't you grab another drink or talk to someone else?" "I'd prefer to talk to you," I replied. That's when she dropped the pretense. "I'm in the middle of a conversation. If it bothers you that I'm sociable, you should think about why it makes you so uncomfortable." Even Marcus looked uneasy. "It doesn't bother me that you're sociable," I explained calmly. "It bothers me that you're flirting." Scarlett crossed her arms, offended. "I am not flirting. It's networking. If you can't handle it, the door is right there." And she pointed toward the garden gate with a challenging smile. I looked at the gate, then at her, and back at the gate. "You know what? You're right." I took out my keys and started walking. Behind me, I heard her voice. "Wait, where are you going?" I didn't answer. I walked through the gate, got into my car, and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing still, mouth agape, while Marcus looked like he wanted to evaporate from the planet. My phone started vibrating as soon as I hit the freeway. Constant notifications. I didn't open anything. I got home, poured myself a drink, and sat on the sofa before checking it. 25 messages, all from Scarlett. The first ones were indignant. What was that? Everyone asked me where you went. That was embarrassing. Then came the shift to a worried tone. Can we please talk? Seriously, you're not going to answer? An hour later, I heard her car park outside. The front door slammed, making the pictures rattle. She stormed into the living room. What is wrong with you? She demanded. I took another sip without haste. Nothing is wrong with me. You said the door was right there, so I used it. You know perfectly well that's not what I meant. Well, it sounded pretty clear. You pointed to the door and told me to use it if I couldn't handle your networking, and I used it, just as you recommended. She started pacing, furious, insisting that I had embarrassed her in front of her colleagues, that she had to invent that I felt ill. Why didn't you tell them the truth? I asked. Why would I make myself look like a terrible wife? I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. And spending 3 hours flirting with Marcus while your husband watches, what does that make you look like then? She turned red. I was not flirting. You are unbearable with your insecurities. It's networking, professional relationships. Oh yes, I replied. And since when is touching another man's arm every 30 seconds part of a work meeting? I left her speechless, but only for a few seconds. Then she resumed her speech about how controlling I supposedly was, repeating that healthy couples trust each other, that I needed to work on my jealousy, that she hadn't done anything wrong. But by that point, I had seen enough. I didn't mean that, but every time I tried to join the conversation, you cut me off as if my presence was a bother. I watched her face turn red. You're twisting everything, she accused. Oh, yes? Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were ashamed of my existence. That is absurd. Sure. Because when I pointed out what you were doing, you yourself showed me the way out of the house. She scoffed with indignation. Do you know what your problem is? You don't trust me. A healthy marriage requires trust. You're right. Trust is essential, but it's earned, not demanded. So you don't trust me? I looked at her for a long moment. Should I? My question hung between us. For the first time all night, she had no answer. She simply turned and left the kitchen. I heard her steps climb the stairs and then the soft slam of the bedroom door closing. That night, I slept in the guest room. The next morning, my phone started ringing before dawn. Scarlett had activated her family defense squad overnight. Her sister Chloe left a message. Her mother did the same. Then Chloe again. I got dressed and went downstairs. She was already in the kitchen, faking concern while talking on the phone. I don't know what's wrong with him lately. He's so controlling, so jealous. Last night he made a huge scene because I was talking to a colleague about work matters. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the doorframe. No, of course, I wasn't flirting, she kept saying. You know how I am. I was just being friendly. But he acted as if I had done something terrible. As soon as she saw me, she lowered her voice. Listen, I have to let you go. Yes, I think he should seek help. Something emotional must be going on. She hung up and turned to me with an exaggeratedly cheerful tone. Good morning. The coffee is fresh. Thanks. I was thinking, she said with artificial softness. Maybe we should talk to someone. It might help resolve your trust issues. My trust issues? Yes. It would be good for you to talk to a professional. I was about to laugh. You want me to go to therapy because you flirted with another man? I want us to improve our communication. I heard you perfectly. You told me the door was right there. Her phone vibrated. She looked at the screen and immediately smiled. It's my mother. She's very worried about us, she answered without waiting. Instantly, she repeated the same distorted version of events, the same victim performance, the same speech about my sickly jealousy. I finished my coffee in silence and went to the garage to organize tools. I needed space to think. Scarlett was executing her usual playbook, owning the narrative before anyone else, turning any disagreement into an attack on her, painting the other person as the problem. Then, my phone rang again. Unknown number. It was Andrew, her brother-in-law. Chloe had called him worried. I briefly explained that Scarlett spent 3 hours flirting with a guy and that when I mentioned it, she told me to leave. He hesitated. Chloe said you got angry because Scarlett was networking. That was her official story. Andrew tried to smooth things over, saying Scarlett had always been sociable, that she didn't have bad intentions, that that's just how she was. Maybe you could be a little more understanding, he insisted. She's quite affected. The whole family is. Andrew, I replied, if Chloe spent 3 hours at a party ignoring you while flirting with another man and then pointed to the door when you complained, what would you do? There was a long silence. That's different. How is it different? Scarlett is just very friendly. Right, I said. Very convenient. I hung up and continued organizing the workbench, already thinking about the next steps, because it was clear to me this marriage was already broken. She just hadn't noticed yet. 20 minutes later, her father called. George also wanted to know what had happened. Did she mention that she pointed to the way out of the house? I asked. Silence. She said you were being unreasonable about the colleague, he replied. Interesting interpretation. Let me tell you another one. Your daughter spent 3 hours flirting with another man while ignoring me. And when I mentioned it, she suggested I leave, so I left. Another, even longer silence. I know Scarlett. She is social. She always has been. Being social is one thing. Last night was something else entirely. Aren't you being too sensitive? George. If your wife spent 3 hours touching another man's arm and acting like you didn't exist, would you think you were being sensitive? The final pause was the longest. No, I wouldn't think that. Then you understand my point. Yes, and between you and me, her mother has been telling me for years that I let her get away with too much. Maybe it's paying the price now. I appreciated his sincerity. I spent the rest of the day preparing for the inevitable. These were plans you don't announce. You only execute. Scarlett came home around 6 with takeout, acting as if nothing had happened. She asked about my day, talked about a TV show, and we ate dinner. I feigned normalcy, but mentally I was already gone. A few days later, she approached me with a completely different attitude. She was no longer defensive. She seemed genuinely remorseful. Can we talk? She asked. We are talking, I replied as I sat down at the table. She sat opposite me. The barbecue was a mistake. I got carried away with the networking thing and didn't think about how it might affect you or how it looked. It was wrong. I didn't react. I just watched her. And I shouldn't have said that thing about the door either. It was cruel, and you didn't deserve it. I'm sorry. I was waiting for the hidden catch. I've been thinking all week, she continued. And yes, you were right. I was flirting. It was hard to admit because I felt guilty, but yes, I was. And I regret it. I don't want to lose you over this. It was the perfect speech, exactly the kind of apology any therapist would recommend, which, ironically, made it even less believable. Okay, I replied. She blinked. Okay, that's all? Yes. You said you made a mistake, and I heard you. Okay. So, are we fine? We are. Well, I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. I said I would do better. And I said, okay. She leaned back in her chair, trying to decipher me. You don't believe me, do you? I took a deep breath before answering, trying to maintain a steady tone and not let irritation dominate me. The air felt heavy between us, charged with unspoken words and hidden resentment. I didn't say that, I repeated calmly, though I was fed up inside. But no matter what we try to clarify, it always ends up being distorted. Scarlett immediately frowned, as if the mere idea that her actions weren't perfect bothered her more than she wanted to admit. You don't understand, she stammered annoyedly, as if I were the obstacle instead of reality itself. I heard you, I replied, shrugging slightly. You've expressed what you wanted to say. I received it. I processed it. I don't know what you expect now. She crossed her arms, moving with that mix of anxiety and authority she used when she wanted to win an argument without actually having reasons. I want us to get past this problem, Scarlett insisted, pronouncing each word as if it were a command disguised as a reasonable request. And what am I supposed to be forgiven for? I asked firmly, holding back my annoyance. It was you who left me alone at a work event after telling me to leave. I literally did exactly that. Left, as you asked. I saw a small tick twitch under her right eye. It was subtle, but I had seen it before. A clear sign that she was starting to lose control of the conversation's script. Fine, then, she retorted, hardening her voice like someone trying to recover lost ground. If you don't want to accept my apology, that's your problem. I am trying to fix this, and you just make everything harder. I did accept it, I reminded her, crossing my arms without breaking eye contact. I want you to accept it for real, she demanded, taking a step toward me as if proximity reinforced her argument. And how am I supposed to know if you're doing that or not? Abruptly, she jumped up from the chair, moving with that impulsive suddenness that always appeared when she couldn't control the narrative of a discussion. The frustration escaped in an abrupt gesture. Because you're acting sarcastic and strange, she accused. You're behaving as if everything is a game, as if you're doing it on purpose. I leaned back slightly in my seat without losing my composure. I'm not playing anything, Scarlett. You apologized. I said, it's fine. I didn't add more because there was nothing left to say. She stared at me for a long time with that tense silence she used when trying to decipher if she was losing control. In the end, she simply spun on her heels and walked out of the room without deigning to reply. I heard her steps climb the stairs, and then the bedroom door slam shut. Only a few seconds, but in that brevity lay the full weight of what had been dragging on for months. For the following days, Scarlett seemed to transform into the perfect version of a remorseful wife, an exact caricature of what one would expect to see in a movie where someone tries to mend a fractured marriage. She cooked my favorite dishes with an almost exaggerated dedication. She avoided any kind of friction, spoke softly. She even mentioned organizing a weekend trip to Sedona to reconnect. Every gesture was meticulously planned. She became more affectionate than normal. She brushed my arm when we talked. She laughed more enthusiastically at my comments. She showed an almost theatrical attention, as if trying to recreate the idealized version of our first year together. Every little detail seemed part of a plan. It took me a few days to realize that this perfection was precisely what made her suspicious. Only when one observes with distance can one understand it. Once you see how a trick works, it's impossible to be fooled by it again. So, I did what anyone would do who, though not yet saying it out loud, understood that their marriage was agonizing. I took silent precautions. In our joint account, we had about $47,000. I didn't move anything abruptly or suddenly. I knew that was the fastest way to arouse suspicion. I started with small, almost insignificant transfers. First $3,000, then $20,500. Days later, another $3,200. And I continued like this, always discrete amounts, into a personal account she was completely unaware of. I created a spreadsheet where I logged every movement with date, time, and concept. I saved all the receipts, every receipt, every screenshot. I wanted it to be completely legal, traceable, impeccable. I wanted to protect myself. In a 2-week period, I had already transferred $28,000, leaving just enough in the joint account for usual expenses so as not to arouse curiosity. Scarlett, as always, barely checked the bank balance. Once a month, a superficial glance, and nothing more. In parallel, I began collecting and backing up important documents, bank statements, the house deed, car titles, insurance policies, our employment contracts. I organized everything into digital and physical folders and took the printed copies to my brother's house, who didn't ask questions, but understood it was better not to. Additionally, I started a timeline where I noted every strange behavior of Scarlett's since June. Inexplicable delays, flimsy excuses, changes in her routine, those last-minute work meetings. Details that at the time seemed unconnected, but when put on a chronological line, began to lose their disguise. And then, one Tuesday afternoon, exactly 3 weeks after the cursed barbecue where it all began, I received an email that chilled my blood. Subject, regarding your wife and my husband. The notification arrived at 2:30 in the afternoon. I stopped dead in my tracks upon seeing the sender's name, Victoria Adams. Her husband, Marcus Carter, the man Scarlett always described as her marketing colleague, someone with whom she supposedly only shared meetings and projects. I opened the email with a pulse that was already quickening. Victoria explained that perhaps I didn't know who she was, but she was married to Marcus, and that the night before, she had found something on her husband's iPad that I urgently needed to see. She said she understood how painful it would be to read it, that it hadn't been easy for her either, but that she had a moral duty to send me that information. She closed the message with a phone number. I called her without thinking. She answered almost instantly, as if she were expecting my call. "Are you Scarlett's husband?" she asked with a firm voice but a hidden tremble. "Yes, I'm Ethan. What exactly is going on?" "I'm Victoria, Marcus's wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife," she said, biting off the words with contained rage. "I'm going to send you some screenshots. I need you to review them all, then we'll talk." She hung up without saying goodbye. 5 seconds later, my phone vibrated. I opened the first image. It was a chat screenshot. At the top, clearly Scarlett's number. The message was dated August 10th, exactly 1 week before the barbecue. Scarlett: "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about it. You make me feel things I haven't felt in years." Marcus: "Same here. When are we doing it again this weekend?" Scarlett: "Friday is good. Same place. I'll tell him I have late work." My breathing became heavy. I felt a sharp pinch at the base of my stomach. I swiped to the next screenshot. Marcus: "Your husband suspects something." Scarlett: "He's been weird lately. He asks questions, but he's too passive to do anything. I have him trained. Haha." I kept going. Every message plunged the knife a little deeper. Plans to meet in a Scottsdale hotel. Comments about how boring I was. Jokes from both of them laughing about how easy it was to deceive Victoria and me. Then came the phrase that pierced me like a gunshot. Scarlett: "Ethan asked me yesterday if everything was okay. I told him he was paranoid and to trust me more." Marcus: "And he believed it?" Scarlett: "Yes, he even apologized. LOL." Marcus: "That guy is a doormat." Scarlett: "He would have kicked me out of the house. That's why I married someone safe. He'll never leave." I felt numb. It was as if I were reading about another person, not about me. But the details were too specific. They matched her schedule, her excuses, the nights she came home late because of the campaign. There were messages from June to August, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the days she said she worked late. I myself had even prepared her meals on some of those mornings, believing she had a difficult day ahead. I called Victoria again. "Did you review everything?" she asked straightforwardly. "Yes," I replied, feeling my voice come out rougher than normal. "How did you find this?" She explained that Marcus usually left his iPad in the kitchen. The night before, she wanted to look up a recipe, saw the messaging app open, and immediately recognized Scarlett's name. The preview of the message was so obvious that she couldn't ignore it. She opened the chat and read everything. "Does he know you found out?" I asked. "Of course," she replied with a steel temper. I confronted him. First he denied it, then he admitted it, then he tried to minimize it. The usual. I don't know if Scarlett knows I know yet. Marcus, on the other hand, is begging me not to tell you anything. I told him it was too late. You deserve to know the truth about the person you sleep with. "Thank you for telling me," I murmured, feeling an enormous weight in my chest. "I'm filing for divorce today," she added without hesitation. "I already contacted a lawyer. I thought you should have all of this before making your decisions." We talked for about 30 minutes. She sent me absolutely everything, complete message threads, images, a voicemail, all organized by date in a folder she had prepared overnight while Marcus slept. When we hung up, I stayed in the car, parked in the building basement. I don't know exactly how much time passed, but the clock showed 40 minutes when I finally reacted. I had been staring at the screen without moving, reviewing the messages over and over. The dates matched, the times matched, the excuses matched. Every detail fit together like a seamless gear. The conclusion was so clear it was frightening. It was all real. And Scarlett had been laughing at me while she betrayed me. Scarlett's constant distance, her reserved attitude, and the way she got defensive every time I tried to talk to her had become too obvious. And while I had tried to convince myself for weeks that I was overreacting, there was no room for doubt now. I knew exactly what I had to do. I drove straight to a lawyer's office. I chose one with good reviews and called for an urgent divorce consultation. The receptionist managed to fit me in at 5 p.m. The lawyer, James, was a man in his late 50s, impeccably dressed, with a spacious office overlooking the city. He listened without interrupting as I recounted every detail. He reviewed the evidence carefully and nodded slowly. "Arizona is a no-fault divorce state," he explained. That means infidelity doesn't directly alter the process, but it does carry weight in how assets are divided and, of course, influences public perception. I want to file the lawsuit immediately, I said, and I want her served at her job. He raised an eyebrow. At her job? She humiliated me in front of everyone at her company event, I replied. I want her to feel a bit of the same. The lawyer leaned back in his chair, assessing me. It's completely legal to hand her the documents there, but it's a strong gesture. If that's the message you wish to send, I can organize it. We spent 3 hours reviewing everything. Joint accounts, the house, the cars, retirement funds. I showed him the spreadsheet with the money I had already preemptively moved. He reviewed it carefully. Good decision, he commented. How quickly can we file? For Thursday, I can have the papers ready. The process server can deliver them on Thursday afternoon. Perfect, make it Thursday around 3 p.m. Any special reason for that time? That's when her department has their weekly meeting. Everyone will be in the conference room, and she'll be right in the middle when she receives the documents. The lawyer smiled slightly. I understand. Very well, let's do it. I left his office with a solid plan. On Tuesday and Wednesday, I maintained completely normal behavior at home. Scarlett continued playing the role of the remorseful wife. She prepared dinner both nights, asked about my day, and tried to act as if nothing were wrong. I responded naturally. I watched TV shows with her. I even laughed when she said something funny, but inside, I only heard the clock ticking, approaching the decisive day. On Wednesday night, she tried to get closer. I told her I was tired. I noticed a flash of frustration in her gaze, but she didn't insist. She went to bed around 11. I stayed awake until 2 a.m., organizing more documents. On Thursday morning, I left for work at 7:30. Scarlett was still asleep, and I didn't wake her. At 2:40 in the afternoon, already sitting in a coffee shop 3 blocks from my office, I received the message from the process server, package delivered. The target seemed to have seen a ghost. At 3 p.m., my phone started ringing. It was Scarlett. I let the call ring until it went to voicemail. She insisted a few minutes later. I ignored her again. By 3:30 p.m., I had 11 missed calls and 7 voicemails. I listened to them in order. The first one said, "Ethan, what did you do? What is this? Call me right now." The next, "I can't believe you did this at my job in front of everyone. My boss called me into his office. Talk to me like an adult. This is crazy. We can resolve this. Please, call me. I know you're angry, but this is too much." And finally, "Fine, don't call, but you are making a huge mistake." I didn't return the call. Instead, I sent a text message. "Your things will be on the porch Sunday. I'm changing the locks tomorrow." Immediately, my phone started ringing again. I rejected the call. Then the messages came, one after the other. I silenced the phone and ordered another coffee. When I left the cafe, I had received 43 messages and 19 calls. Arriving home around 6 p.m., I noticed Scarlett's car in the driveway. On the step was the old key and a note from the handyman I had asked to change the locks. All set. New keys in the mailbox. I took them and went inside. She was sitting on the sofa, eyes swollen and makeup smeared. She stood up as soon as she saw me. "We need to talk." "No," I replied. "You need to leave. This house is mine too." "Not anymore." The lawyer filed a motion for exclusive use. You'll get your share when we finish the process. Until then, you are trespassing on private property. Her mouth hung open. "You can't do that." "I already did. You have 5 minutes to take the basics for tonight. The rest I'll put on the porch on Sunday." "Ethan, please, no. Grab your things, leave the key, and go." She stared at me, speechless. Finally, she murmured, "I made a mistake. A huge mistake, but we can fix it. Many couples do. You were with him for 3 months. You lied to my face. You said I was boring. You laughed at how easy it was to hide it. And when I caught you flirting with him, you told me to leave. There is nothing to fix." Her face lost all color. "How? Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter. I know everything. Hotels, dates, messages, every detail. So, drop the act." She started crying. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." "You have 4 minutes left, Scarlett." She went upstairs and returned 10 minutes later with a travel bag and her work laptop. She stopped at the door. "I love you. I know you don't believe me now, but I love you, and I'm going to fight for us. The papers are already filed. Even so, there's always a way to repair things." Your chance to avoid all of this was not cheating. Your chance was not lying to me. You chose to destroy this. Now please, get out of here." Scarlett walked out. She stayed inside the car crying for 15 minutes before starting the engine and driving away. The phone started ringing barely 30 seconds after I sent the demand. I hadn't even finished putting away the documents when I saw Chloe's name light up the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. I already knew the tone she would take. Her voice exploded like a gunshot. "What did you do, Ethan? Tell me this is a joke." She sounded hysterical, almost as if she were the one directly affected. "I filed for divorce," I replied with absolute calm. "Scarlett had an affair for 3 months, that's all. Do you need any other details? You served her papers at work in front of everyone. What were you thinking? That is unnecessarily cruel." I laughed in disbelief. "Cruel? I'll tell you what's cruel. Sleeping with a coworker while your husband thinks you're staying late for a project. Cruel is manipulating him when he starts noticing something is wrong, telling him he's paranoid, that he's imagining things. That is cruelty in its purest form. You're acting out of spite. That won't lead you anywhere good. She humiliated me in the first place, and I am only restoring the dignity I lost by enduring her double life. If she is devastated as you say, I'm glad. Maybe that way she will understand what she provoked." She stayed silent for a long moment, as if searching for something to say to change my mind, but found nothing. "You're going to regret this," she threatened in a lower voice. "You won't be able to go back when this blows up more. The only thing I regret is not leaving when I saw the first signs. Tell Scarlett that all communication must go through the lawyers and that she is not to return to the house." I gave her no chance to respond. I hung up and blocked her number. Minutes later, calls began to flood in. Hours later, the phone was still vibrating. The messages continued into the early morning. I didn't answer any of them. I ordered some food, put on a random basketball game to distract myself, and went to bed around 11 p.m. And surprisingly, I slept better than I had in months. No nightmares, no anxiety, no tossing and turning. It was the deepest rest I'd had in months. On Friday morning, while eating breakfast, I received the first message from a mutual friend. That's when I knew the chaos had already spread throughout the company where Scarlett worked. It didn't surprise me. Those things always spread like wildfire. He told me that Victoria had filed for divorce from Marcus Carter on the exact same day Scarlett received the papers, and that both of them being served at their workplace caused the kind of situation you would imagine: stares, murmurs, forwarded emails, impromptu closed-door meetings with HR. The department they belonged to organized an emergency meeting with Marcus Carter, Scarlett, and Human Resources. As I was told, the tension inside that room could be felt even from the hallway. The result was immediate. Marcus Carter was suspended from his duties. Scarlett, meanwhile, managed to keep her job only because the extramarital relationship occurred outside of work hours, but her reputation was pulverized. By that very afternoon, everyone knew. There wasn't a single corner of the company where her name wasn't being mentioned. Scarlett, who until recently was considered a model employee, became the one who cheated on her husband with a married coworker, and every passing day, the nickname grew crueler. When I turned my phone back on after ignoring it all night, I had 53 missed calls. Most were from Scarlett, several from her family, and one from an unknown number that turned out to be Scarlett's boss, practically begging me not to talk about the issue online or with other employees. I didn't even bother to answer him. The only call I made was to George, Scarlett's father, who had tried to contact me 3 times. "Is it true?" he asked as soon as he answered. "Did you really file for divorce?" "Yes." "I can't blame you." His tone was tired, resigned. "Last night Scarlett called me crying. Then Chloe texted early this morning, saying you were overreacting. I imagine the truth is somewhere between both versions, but I'm inclined to believe you're telling the truth." "I have proof of the 3 months," I replied without emotion. "Messages, records, receipts." He let out a long, deep sigh. Laden with paternal disappointment. Her mother has defended her all week. This will destroy her when she sees the evidence. "It's no longer my responsibility," I replied seriously. "I know, and I won't blame you for anything. My daughter made wrong choices. Now she'll have to deal with what she provoked. Thank you for understanding." We hung up shortly after. It was the first conversation of the day that didn't end in screaming or attacks. Towards noon, I received a message from Clara, a close friend who was always more honest than the others. They fired Marcus Carter this morning. HR said the repercussions were impossible to ignore. I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens to Scarlett soon. I replied, "Thanks for the update. And by the way, she's no longer my wife." Just for the record. Her response came seconds later. "Good for you." On Saturday afternoon, I saw Scarlett's car stop in front of the house. No need to guess. I knew she would try to convince me for the umpteenth time. She knocked on the door. I opened it but left the security chain engaged. I had never seen her so distraught. Deep dark circles, smeared makeup, messy hair. "Ethan, please, let's talk." "There's not much to resolve." "You can't cut off 6 years like this." "I already did," I answered firmly. "What happened is beyond repair." "People work these things out," she insisted. "We can go to couples therapy, rebuild what we had." I was foolish. I'm human. I made a huge mistake. I beg you, give me one last chance. "No, Scarlett." Her expression broke instantly. She cried without trying to hide it. "I'll do whatever you want." "Anything. You want me to quit?" "I'll quit. You want us to move?" "I'll do it. You want me to cut off all contact with Marcus? I'll cut it off. Ask me anything, but don't leave me." "This is over," I repeated without raising my voice, "and it ended because you provoked it." I calmly closed the door. I heard her cry on the porch for about 20 minutes before she left. On Sunday at 10 a.m., Scarlett returned accompanied by Chloe to retrieve her things. I had already packed all her belongings into boxes and left them on the porch. Clothes, shoes, dishes, framed photos, small souvenirs, personal items, everything. From the window, I watched them load each box into the truck. Scarlett looked toward the house on every trip as if expecting me to come out for a final confrontation. It didn't happen. Finally, she knocked on the door. I didn't answer. She tried to use the key I left in one of the boxes, the old one, which obviously wouldn't work. I heard her mutter a frustrated curse. "Ethan," she shouted, "please open the door." Nothing. Chloe said something. Scarlett replied bitterly. Then the car doors closed. The engine started and they drove away. I waited 5 minutes and went out. Only one box remained. I brought it inside and opened it. Inside were sentimental memories. Our wedding album, her dress, anniversary cards, the framed honeymoon photo. Without a second thought, I took it to the dumpster and threw everything away. I didn't feel an ounce of guilt. The divorce proceeded faster than expected. Scarlett's lawyer tried from day one to slow down the process, insisting we should go to mediation, that the situation was too recent, that we needed to think clearly. My lawyer responded with a single email attaching everything: messages proving the infidelity, hotel receipts, the exact timeline. My client is not interested in mediating with someone who sustained a 3-month affair. See you in court. After that, they stopped insisting. 2 weeks later, we had the first hearing, a purely preliminary step. Scarlett arrived with her legal representative. She tried to catch my eye, but I ignored her completely, as if she were transparent glass. Her lawyer alleged that I had moved funds impulsively. My lawyer presented the detailed spreadsheet with every registered and justified transfer. The judge determined it was a perfectly reasonable asset protection. Finally, as the law dictates in a no-fault divorce, the division was equal: 50% of the house's value, 50% of retirement funds, 50% of shared assets. And just like that, without drama, the closure began to take shape. The only victory that truly felt like my own was keeping the $28,000 I had moved in time. For me, that was pure justice. The entire legal process took about 4 months, from the day I filed the lawsuit until it was finally closed. In that time, Marcus was fired just 3 weeks after receiving the initial process documents. Scarlett, conversely, managed to keep her job, but the price was extremely high. She was marked within the company. No one wanted to collaborate with her on new projects. Lunch invitations disappeared, and people who used to be friendly started having urgent meetings whenever she approached. A former colleague of hers told me that Scarlett tried to do damage control. She claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that I had overreacted, and that the separation had been mutual. But Victoria had already spoken to some people, and the messages, along with the screenshots, had spread. It was difficult to disguise 3 months of hotel meetings as a simple miscommunication. She tried to change departments. She was denied. So she ended up going to an office every day where everyone knew perfectly well what she had done. 4 months after filing the lawsuit, I received the email. The subject was clear. Process finalized. You are officially divorced. Congratulations on your new beginning. That night, I treated myself to dinner at a nice restaurant. I ordered a good cut of meat, sat at the bar, and watched a basketball game. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling a pressure in my chest. 2 weeks later, on a Thursday around 7 p.m., there was a knock at the door of my new apartment. I had moved downtown to a one-bedroom place with huge windows, a space without memories, a fresh start. I looked through the peephole and saw Scarlett. For a moment, I considered not opening it, but I finally slid the bolt. I didn't invite her in. "What do you want?" I asked. She looked different, thinner, exhausted, aged in a way that had nothing to do with her years. That confidence she once displayed at a barbecue was gone. "I needed to talk to you," she said in a low voice. "The divorce is final. There's nothing left to discuss. I know, I didn't come to change that. I just need to say some things. Can I come in for 5 minutes?" Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She came in and scanned the living room. "Nice place," she murmured. Then she turned to me. "I miss you." I didn't reply. I just waited. "I know you probably don't believe me, but it's the truth. I miss you, us, what we were before I messed everything up." "Your way of showing it was curious," I countered. She flinched. "I made a huge mistake. I know. I ruined the best thing I had by being selfish and acting without thinking. I've spent 4 months going over every detail." "Good for you," I said without emotion. "I lost my job," she blurted out. They're downsizing the marketing department, and I'm first on the list. Everyone knows it's because of what happened. It's not my problem." "I know. I didn't come here to ask you to fix it. I just want you to understand that I've already paid for what I did." "Everything fell apart because you pushed it," I replied. "I know," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm not looking for your pity. I just want to know if there's any chance of trying again, starting over. I've learned my lesson, Ethan." I looked at her for a long moment. "It's not a mistake. You cheated on me. And the worst part wasn't that. You made me believe I was imagining things. You treated me like a paranoid, jealous man when I was actually right. That's what showed me who you are when you're scared." "It wasn't my intention." "It was exactly your intention," I interrupted. "You wanted me to feel unstable so you could keep playing 2 roles, but it didn't turn out as you planned. I took the door you offered me. And now it's your turn to deal with the result." Tears streamed down her face. "It's not fair," she murmured. I walked to the front door and opened it. "Do you remember when you told me the door was right there?" I asked. "Well, here it is again. Use it." She froze, tears falling uncontrollably. "I'm not leaving," she whispered. "Yes, you are. Now." She slowly started walking toward the exit, stopping at the threshold. She turned back to me. "I love you, even if you don't believe it." "No, you don't love me. You're terrified of being alone, so take your apologies and your love and get them out of my life." She opened her mouth to say something more, but I didn't give her the chance. I firmly pushed the door and closed it before she could utter a single word. I stood there, my hand still resting on the wood, breathing slowly, waiting to hear her steps move away. She didn't move immediately. The silent wait on the other side felt long, almost uncomfortable. I looked through the peephole. Scarlett was standing in the hallway, motionless, her gaze lost on the carpet, as if trying to find an explanation that would never come. After a minute, I saw her bring her hands to her face. Her shoulders trembled. I heard nothing, but her sobs were evident. She stayed like that for a good while, unable to take a step, as if the weight of what she had provoked had finally fallen upon her. When she finally started to move, she did so with a slowness that seemed unbreakable. She turned around and walked toward the elevator without looking back. She waited there alone, head down. When the doors opened, she got in and disappeared from my sight. That was the last time I saw her. 4 months have passed since that day, and the silence has been absolute. She hasn't tried to call or text me. Through some acquaintances, I learned that she ended up losing her job, packed everything she could, and left for Denver to stay with an old college friend. I also heard that she tried to contact Marcus Carter, but he immediately blocked her. Ironic, they both ruined their lives for a fleeting romance that didn't even have the strength to sustain itself when the world fell on them. I feel no resentment, no satisfaction, only a quiet clarity. Her life took a path that no longer belongs to me. I, on the other hand, found exactly what I needed. I sold my share of the house where I once tried to build a future with her and bought a smaller place in Scottsdale. 2 bedrooms, a modest pool, and a rescue dog I adopted a few weeks ago. He doesn't know how to fetch, but he sleeps quietly next to me. And the truth is, that's more than I need. Today, my life is different. Quiet, stable. Sometimes I'm surprised at how well I sleep, how light the house feels when I no longer have to watch every gesture or every explanation. I suppose freedom sometimes comes in ways you don't expect. And while I don't wish Scarlett ill, I'm glad her story is no longer connected to mine. She goes her way. I go mine. And for the first time in a long time, I am at peace.